James and Emily knew they were taking the most exciting step of their lives when they decided to embark on a world tour. For them, it was not just about seeing new places but also an opportunity to deepen their bond and love for each other. After exploring many different countries and cultures, they set their sights on an exotic and mysterious place, Aurora Island. Aurora Island, nestled in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, was a place rarely seen on maps, renowned for its captivating nature and rich culture. To reach the island, they had to endure a long flight followed by hours of sailing. When the island finally appeared on the horizon, James's fatigue vanished instantly. The island's lush forests and white sandy beaches, merging with the deep blue of the ocean, presented a breathtaking view. Upon their arrival, they were greeted by their local guide, an elderly man who knew the island's history and culture inside out. Their guide, an old man named Kai, began to share the island's stories with the couple, whose eyes sparkled with curiosity. Kai mentioned that Aurora Island was steeped in ancient legends and that many secrets still lay hidden within its depths. These stories further fueled James and Emily's curiosity. The next day, they started their island tour under Kai's guidance. Their first stop was an old fishing village on the southern coast of the island. The villagers lived traditionally, fishing using age-old methods. Emily was impressed by the warmth and hospitality of the villagers. During the few hours they spent in the village, they tasted local delicacies and witnessed the daily life of the people. However, James's mind was still on the legends Kai had mentioned. The secrets and mystical powers hidden in the depths of the island had ignited his imagination. Kai took them to the highest point on the island, Kahuna Hill. The view from the hill was magnificent. Lush forests, white sandy beaches, and the distant blue ocean all came together to create a mesmerizing panorama. Kai left them alone for a while on Kahuna Hill, telling them he would wait for them on the way back. As James and Emily walked on the hill, they came across an old path. The path led into the depths of the forest and bore traces reminiscent of the stories Kai had told. James realized that this path was not on the guide's route and suggested to Emily that there might be something undiscovered here. Although Emily hesitated a little, she decided to join James's adventurous spirit. As they entered the path, they began to discover a different world within the depths of the forest. As the density of the trees increased, the sunlight dimmed, and the forest took on a more mysterious atmosphere. James and Emily encountered plant and animal species they had never seen before as they moved away from the known areas of the island. The silence of the forest was only broken by occasional bird calls. After walking for a while, they came across the ruins of an old structure deep in the forest. These ruins must have belonged to an ancient civilization that once lived there. As James and Emily wandered around the structure, they found strange symbols and carvings on the stones. These symbols provided clues about the beliefs and lifestyle of the tribe that once inhabited the island. James decided to follow these traces. Although Emily felt a bit uneasy, she joined him upon seeing his determination. As they moved deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon an ancient temple. The temple was almost hidden within nature, covered in ivy. At the entrance of the temple, there was a large stone door engraved with the tribe's symbols of their god. Inside the temple, they were struck by the large altar and the surrounding statues. The statues depicted gods with supernatural powers. As the couple tried to understand these gods and the beliefs of the tribe, they heard a sound echoing inside the temple. This sound must have been part of the tribe's rituals. Emily was scared by the situation, but James's curiosity emboldened her. As they ventured deeper into the temple, they encountered members of the tribe. The tribe members had not noticed them yet and were continuing their rituals. James and Emily began to secretly observe the tribe's ritual. At the center of the ritual stood a large statue symbolizing the tribe's god. The tribe members danced and prayed around this statue. At the end of the ritual, light emanated from the statue's eyes, illuminating the temple. As James and Emily tried to understand the source of this light, they suddenly found themselves catching the attention of the tribe. The tribe members had noticed them and surrounded them. The couple was at a loss for what to do and began to make plans to escape. Realizing that the tribe was about to capture them, James and Emily quickly fled the temple into the depths of the forest. However, the darkness and dense vegetation of the forest made their escape difficult. The tribe members were pursuing them to capture them. James did his best to protect Emily, while Emily tried to think of escape plans despite her fear. With the tribe hot on their heels, James and Emily ran deeper into the forest, their hearts pounding in their chests. The dense foliage and uneven terrain made their escape challenging. Branches scratched at their skin and clothes, but they pushed on, driven by the urgent need to get away. They reached a small clearing, where they paused to catch their breath and assess their surroundings. The eerie silence of the forest was occasionally interrupted by the distant sounds of the tribe searching for them. James looked at Emily, concern etched on his face. "We need to keep moving. We can't let them catch us." Emily nodded, her fear barely contained. "But where do we go? This forest feels like a maze." James scanned the area and spotted a narrow path that seemed less traveled. "Let's take that path. It might lead us to safety." They resumed their trek, following the narrow trail as it wound through the forest. The path was overgrown and difficult to navigate, but it seemed to lead them further away from the pursuing tribe. As they ventured deeper, the canopy above thickened, casting the forest in an almost twilight gloom. After what felt like hours of walking, they stumbled upon an ancient stone structure hidden among the trees. It was a small, dilapidated shrine, covered in moss and vines. The air around it felt heavy with an ancient presence. "Look at this," James whispered, moving closer to inspect the carvings on the stone. "These symbols are similar to the ones we saw in the temple." Emily approached cautiously, her eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger. "What do you think it means?" James traced the carvings with his fingers. "I don't know, but it seems like this place has been abandoned for a long time. Maybe we can find some clues here about the tribe and their god." As they explored the shrine, they found a hidden compartment beneath one of the stones. Inside, there was an old parchment, covered in symbols and drawings. James carefully unrolled it, revealing what appeared to be a map. "This must be a map of the island," James said, excitement creeping into his voice. "Look, there's a marked path leading to a place called the heart of the island." Emily looked at the map skeptically. "Do you think it's safe to follow it? We've already seen how dangerous this place can be." James considered her words. "I don't know, but this might be our best chance to find answers and possibly a way out of here." With renewed determination, they decided to follow the map. The path it outlined seemed to lead further into the forest, towards the island's interior. As they walked, the atmosphere grew more oppressive, and the forest seemed to close in around them. The journey to the heart of the island was arduous. The terrain became increasingly difficult, and the forest grew darker and more foreboding. James and Emily pressed on, their resolve strengthened by the hope that they might find a way to escape the island and its mysterious tribe. After several hours of navigating the dense forest, they finally arrived at a massive clearing. In the center stood a large stone structure, partially covered by the encroaching jungle. This was the heart of the island, a place that seemed to pulse with an ancient and powerful energy. The structure was unlike anything they had seen before. It was a colossal altar, surrounded by statues of the same god they had seen in the temple. The air was thick with an otherworldly presence, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with power. "This must be it," James said, awe in his voice. "The heart of the island." Emily looked around, her unease growing. "What do you think this place is for?" James approached the altar cautiously. "It looks like a place of worship, but there's something more to it. The energy here feels different." As they examined the altar, they noticed a series of intricate carvings depicting scenes of the tribe performing rituals. At the center of these carvings was the image of the god, radiating light and power. Suddenly, they heard a noise behind them. They turned to see a group of the tribe's warriors emerging from the forest, their expressions stern and unyielding. James and Emily backed away slowly, realizing they had been cornered. One of the warriors, an imposing figure with elaborate markings on his face, stepped forward. He spoke in a language they didn't understand, but his tone was clear. He was issuing a command. "We're in trouble," Emily whispered, gripping James's arm. James looked around, searching for an escape route, but they were surrounded. "Stay close to me," he said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. The warrior raised his hand, and the others moved in, grabbing James and Emily and forcing them towards the altar. They struggled, but the warrior's grip was strong and unyielding. At the altar, the The warrior began to chant in a low, rhythmic voice. The air around them grew heavy, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to vibrate with energy. James and Emily watched in horror as the statue of the god began to glow, its eyes lighting up with an eerie, otherworldly light. The chanting grew louder, and the energy around them intensified. James and Emily felt a strange force pulling at them, as if the island itself was reaching out to them. They struggled against the warriors, but it was no use. The power of the island and its god was too strong. As the light from the statue enveloped them, James and Emily felt themselves being drawn into a vortex of energy. The last thing they saw before everything went black was the face of the god, glowing with a terrifying and mesmerizing light. James awoke with a start, gasping for air. His body felt heavy and disoriented. The ground beneath him was cold and hard, and the dim light of dawn filtered through the thick canopy above. He turned his head and saw Emily lying beside him, still unconscious. "Are you okay?" he whispered, shaking her gently. Emily stirred and slowly opened her eyes. "What happened? Where are we?" James helped her sit up, his mind racing to piece together their last memories. "I don't know. The last thing I remember is that light from the statue. It felt like it was pulling us in." They looked around, realizing they were no longer at the heart of the island. Instead, they were in a different part of the forest, surrounded by ancient trees and thick underbrush. The air was cool and filled with the sounds of the jungle waking up. "We need to find out where we are and figure out what happened," James said, trying to sound calm despite the uncertainty gnawing at him. Emily nodded, still shaken. "Do you think the tribe did this to us? Why would they bring us here?" James shook his head. "I don't know, but we need to stay alert. Let's find some water and get our bearings." They stood up, their bodies still aching from the ordeal, and began to explore their surroundings. As they walked, they noticed that the forest seemed different. The trees were older, and the vegetation was thicker, almost as if they had been transported to a different time. After hours of wandering through the dense jungle, they stumbled upon a small stream. The water was clear and cool, and they drank eagerly, refreshing themselves after their harrowing experience. "We need to find higher ground," James suggested. "If we can get a better view of the area, we might be able to figure out where we are." They followed the stream until it led them to a gentle slope. As they climbed, the vegetation thinned out, and they began to see glimpses of the surrounding landscape. When they reached the top, they were greeted by a breathtaking view of the island. From their vantage point, they could see the dense forest stretching out in all directions, with the distant peaks of mountains rising above the treetops. In the distance, they spotted a small village nestled in a valley. "Look," Emily pointed. "There's a village over there. Maybe we can find someone who can help us." James agreed, and they made their way towards the village, their hopes lifting slightly. As they approached, they noticed that the village was unlike any they had seen before. The huts were made of natural materials, blending seamlessly with the surrounding jungle, and the air was filled with the sound of children playing and villagers going about their daily tasks. When they entered the village, they were greeted by curious stares and hushed whispers. An elderly woman, clearly a respected figure, stepped forward to meet them. She spoke in a language they didn't understand, but her tone was gentle and welcoming. James and Emily exchanged worried glances, unsure of how to communicate. They mimed the need for help, and the woman seemed to understand. She motioned for them to follow her, leading them to a large hut at the center of the village. Inside, the air was cool and fragrant with the scent of herbs. The elderly woman introduced herself as Nala, the village healer, and gestured for them to sit. Through a combination of gestures and simple words, Nala conveyed that she would help them. Nala brought out a collection of ancient scrolls and laid them out before James and Emily. The scrolls were covered in the same strange symbols they had seen in the temple and the shrine. As Nala began to explain, James and Emily listened intently, trying to piece together her story. She told them about the ancient tribe that had once ruled the island and their powerful god. The god, she said, was both a protector and a destroyer, capable of immense power but also demanding great sacrifices. Nala explained that the heart of the island was a sacred place where the tribe performed rituals to honor their god and receive his blessings. The light they had seen was a manifestation of the god's power, and it had transported them to this part of the island for a reason. "What reason?" James asked, frustration evident in his voice. Why are we here? Nala shook her head, her expression serious. She pointed to a symbol on one of the scrolls, depicting a great battle between the forces of light and darkness. She explained that the island was on the brink of a great conflict, and that James and Emily had a role to play in the coming events. We're supposed to help? Emily asked, incredulous. How can we help when we don't even understand what's happening? Nala's eyes softened, and she placed a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. She pointed to their hearts and then to the sky, indicating that their inner strength and determination would be their greatest weapons. James and Emily exchanged determined glances. They had faced unimaginable challenges together, and they knew they could handle whatever lay ahead. With Nala's guidance, they began to prepare for the trials to come, learning about the island's history, the tribe's rituals, and the secrets of the ancient god. As the days passed, James and Emily trained with the villagers, learning how to navigate the jungle, use traditional weapons, and understand the ancient rituals that could help them harness the island's power. They grew stronger and more confident, their bond deepening as they faced each new challenge together. Nala taught them how to read the symbols on the scrolls, revealing the island's secrets and the rituals that could be used to invoke the god's power. James and Emily immersed themselves in the training, determined to be ready for whatever lay ahead. One evening, as the sun set and cast a warm glow over the village, Nala gathered everyone around a large fire. She began to tell the story of the island's creation and the god who watched over it. The villagers listened intently, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. The god of this island, Nala said, her voice carrying a mix of reverence and fear, was once a great warrior who protected our ancestors from invaders. But with great power came a great burden. The god demanded sacrifices to maintain the balance and keep the island safe. James and Emily listened, captivated by the tale. They learned that the god's power was connected to the island itself, and that only by understanding and respecting this connection could they hope to harness it. As the night wore on, Nala looked directly at James and Emily. You have been chosen by the god for a reason. Your arrival here is no accident. You must prove your worth and show that you can protect the island and its people. James felt a surge of determination. We'll do whatever it takes. Tell us what we need to do. Nala nodded, a glint of approval in her eyes. Tomorrow, you will undergo the trial of the god. It is a test of strength, courage, and wisdom. If you succeed, you will gain the power to protect this island. If you fail, the island and all of us will be in great danger. James and Emily spent the night in quiet contemplation, preparing themselves mentally and physically for the trial ahead. They knew that their journey had led them to this moment, and they were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The next morning, the village was abuzz with anticipation. Villagers gathered around the central square, their faces a mix of hope and anxiety. James and Emily, guided by Nala, approached the center where a large stone altar had been prepared. The altar was adorned with symbols and offerings to the god, and the air was thick with a sense of reverence. Nala stepped forward and addressed the crowd. Today, James and Emily will face the trial of the god. They have shown great courage and determination, but now they must prove their worth in the eyes of the god. James and Emily stood side by side, their hands tightly clasped. They exchanged a glance, drawing strength from each other. Nala approached them, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. The trial will test your strength, your courage, and your wisdom, Nala said softly. Remember what you have learned, and trust in each other. The god will guide you. With those words, Nala stepped back, and the villagers began to chant softly, a rhythmic and ancient song that filled the air with a sense of purpose. The ground beneath the altar began to tremble, and the symbols carved into the stone glowed faintly. Suddenly, a bright light enveloped James and Emily, and they found themselves standing in a vast, otherworldly landscape. The sky above was a swirling mix of colors, and the ground beneath their feet felt both solid and ethereal. Where are we? Emily whispered, her voice echoing in the strange environment. James looked around, his expression determined. This must be the trial. We need to stay focused and work together. As they took their first steps, a voice echoed around them, deep and resonant. Welcome, challengers. You have been brought here to prove your worth. Face the trials ahead with courage, and you may earn the power to protect the island. The first trial began almost immediately. The landscape around them shifted, and they found themselves standing in a dense jungle, much like the one on Aurora Island. Before them stood a massive creature, a guardian of the trial, its eyes glowing with a fierce light. "We need to defeat it," James said, his voice steady. "Remember our training." They moved as one, dodging the creature's powerful strikes and using their newfound skills to counterattack. The battle was intense, and every move required precision and teamwork. As they fought, they recalled Nala's teachings, using the environment to their advantage and striking with purpose. After a grueling battle, they managed to defeat the creature. It dissolved into a shower of light, and the voice echoed around them again. "You have proven your strength." But strength alone is not enough. The landscape shifted once more, and they found themselves standing at the edge of a deep chasm. A narrow, rickety bridge spanned the gap, swaying precariously in the wind. "We need to cross," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly. "But it looks dangerous." James took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "We can do this. Just don't look down." They stepped onto the bridge, each step a test of their courage and balance. The bridge creaked and swayed, and the chasm below seemed to stretch into infinity. Halfway across, a powerful gust of wind nearly knocked them off their feet, but they held on, supporting each other. With each step, their fear diminished, replaced by a growing sense of determination. When they finally reached the other side, the voice echoed again. "You have shown courage. But courage alone is not enough." The final trial brought them to a serene, ancient temple. Inside, they found a series of puzzles and riddles, each more complex than the last. They worked together, their minds sharp and focused, drawing on everything they had learned about the island and its history. As they solved the final puzzle, a hidden door opened, revealing a chamber bathed in a soft, golden light. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal with a glowing crystal. "This must be it," James said, his voice filled with awe. "The heart of the island's power." They approached the pedestal, and as they reached out to touch the crystal, the voice spoke once more. "You have proven your strength, your courage, and your wisdom. You are worthy." The crystal's light enveloped them, and they felt a surge of energy, a connection to the island and its ancient power. When the light faded, they found themselves back in the village, surrounded by cheering villagers. Nala approached them, her eyes shining with pride. "You have succeeded. The island and its people are in your debt." James and Emily felt a deep sense of accomplishment and purpose. They had faced the trials and emerged stronger, ready to protect the island and its people. With their newfound powers, James and Emily helped the villagers fortify their defenses and prepare for any threats that might come. They used their knowledge and abilities to bring prosperity and peace to the island. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between James and Emily grew even stronger. They had faced unimaginable challenges together and had emerged victorious. The island became their home, a place of adventure, love, and purpose. One evening, as they stood on the beach watching the sunset, Emily turned to James and smiled. "We did it. We found our place." James nodded, wrapping his arm around her. "Yes, we did. And we'll continue to protect it, together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over Aurora Island, James and Emily knew that their journey had only just begun. They were ready for whatever the future held, their hearts and spirits united by the trials they had faced and the love they shared.